We'll take a bit of a conversation through this one, but it's really just to kind of bring you an update from the front lines of the next branch of physics that's going through its commercialization journey. And when you take a really, really big picture view, I mean, that's how you could best situate yourself. If you were to try and put yourself a couple hundred years ago, you actually try and imagine what kinds of technologies existed at that time and what branches of physics they had harnessed. And right now, I think the similarities are quite similar between where quantum is today and where electromagnetism was about 200 years ago. So there used to fill audience halls 200 years ago for people to see what a magnet was. Oh my gosh, a magnet. And now it's so industrial and such a commodity that we literally plug things into the wall and it's still just as magical and people still don't understand it, but it's boring. And that's what progress looks like when we commercialize branches of physics. These become tools. And we've heard actually today, one of the most recent branches of physics that got commercialized, nuclear, these have both like very, very different interpretations and play throughout the community. But bringing the tool online is a capability to be harnessed. Quantum is just starting. I would say the first quantum technology doesn't go by the name quantum, it goes by MRI, I would say. Some people would argue that even semiconductors fit into that, but I would give semiconductor physics its own branch, which we're still seeing the fallout of that, right? Everything to do with AI is just what are semiconductors done again for us? Oh my goodness. But for quantum, I would say the first quantum technology that has impacted all of us has been MRIs. This is a quantum sensor. The reason why you won't call it quantum is because the word quantum right now is scary, right? So you'll hear a lot more quantum sensors coming in, but they're not going to be branded that way. The other two major technologies that you will have heard of is probably quantum communications or quantum cryptography and quantum computing. I'm a quantum computing person. I've been in quantum for 23 years and I love it. I fell in love with it and haven't looked back since when I was 16. Because commercializing this will bring tools that just cannot be done any other way, right? So the magic of Moore's law is you double the number of transistors in a chip and great. For quantum, if you add one quantum bit, you double the information capacity carrying of that system. So that is to say, if you were to control 300 quantum bits, it would have more information carrying capacity than if you had every single atom in the universe working as a classical computer, right? Just wild. We gotta harness this stuff. Now, just as wild is how do you program these things? How do you know how to use these things in advance of them coming online, right? It's actually magical that we have over decades delivered, it's quantumalgorithms.org, go check it out. That's where you have a lot of the known algorithms where you can, in pen and paper, you can figure out, oh yeah, you can do all of these things with quantum technologies, all these algorithms, if one were to have such a system. So I'm coming to you as a bit of an update on where we are on that, because one of the things that's going to impact everybody very sincerely is when people realize that a large-scale quantum system can basically open all cryptography that we have today. It just is going to happen. If you haven't heard of that yet, it is going to happen. We knew about this in 1995, and is again one of these situations where we decided to double down on the cryptography that we used and just knowing that this was eventually going to come. What I'm here to share with you is that the projections that people have had on how soon that is going to be have come down dramatically year on year over the past 5 years, and I'm going to explain to you why. So this is more just saying, hey, look, things are coming, things are moving, but this is a good thing because that kind of processing capability, what we don't yet know is what it's going to unlock on the heuristic level, right? We only have a list of the deterministic algorithms where you're, okay, you require this many qubits, it'll take this runtime. But all the heuristics that are going to be unlocked by that kind of computational capacity is going to be very interesting to see. So I wanted to share with you, maybe you've seen this space, maybe you haven't seen this space, so forgive me if this is completely off to the side. But there was some really interesting investment shift from academia into the venture world in quantum about 10 years ago, right? So you may have heard Google, you may have heard D-Wave, these kinds of companies are like, yeah, the quantum, it's great. And so now you're like, well, how is that different from what you're just talking about? That is what I'll call the first phase of quantum computing. So the first phase of quantum computing, I didn't coin this term, but I wanted to share it with you so you can get a sense of what's coming, what this roadmap looks like. The first phase of quantum computing was NISQ, noisy. It's essentially experiments that you put into the wild, as it were, for access. It wasn't known in advance if there was going to be heuristics unlocked at this phase. Right? There was optimism. There's clearly optimism, but it wasn't known. And it's basically proven to be, yeah, there really isn't. Okay? They're too noisy, and the problem with exponential state space is that debugging is super hard if you can't rely upon the computer to do what you're telling it to do. All right? So all of the computers that are out there right now are in this category, except for a few months ago, people started getting into this phase. Okay? So this happened, I don't know, weeks to months ago. This is like a shift that's happening real time. All right? And the big change that happened, and again, this is kind of similar to nuclear, where a few years before it came out, people thought it was impossible. They just had to shift their assumptions. So the assumptions here actually got unlocked by realizing that you have to connect these systems differently. That's coming right now. That won't yet unlock all of the known applications. The last one is moving into a modular system. So this is what's happening right now. It is still unclear if this will unlock commercial value, but this is where we're at right now. The next phase is modularization and actually connecting these things in a modular framework, because the perfection needed to execute this isn't big enough for real big applications. So this work is what my firm is doing, and increasingly other firms are doing. But I was just telling you, it went from being 30 years to 10 to 5, if less. So ask me more if you're curious. Thank you.